Hi, today I'm going to show you how to knit this lattice design hat. Let's get started. This is lattice design Fair Isle hat. It's beautiful design. And top of the head, that's the decreasing part, and I will show you how to do Fair Isle knitting. You have to be very careful is tension. You have to carry two colors at the same time. If you pull the yarn too hard, you lose elasticity. But mine, beautiful, very stretchy. This is how it's supposed to be. If you pull too hard, it's going to be much smaller and tighter. So you might have to redo it. Anyway, let's get started. And I started with 4 different colors, but I actually add 2 colors later on. Cast on. With main color, multiple of 4. I made 120. I usually knit my hat with number 4 DK yarn, and I usually start with 96 cast, but today thinner yarn and needle, so I made 120 cast. Once you make the cast, you will connect both ends. I'm using longer cable at this moment, but I am going to change shorter cable, so never mind the magic loop technique. Okay, the rib is repeat of knit 2 and purl 2. Knit 2 and purl 2. You just have to be very careful on first row because from the second row you just knit over knit stitch and purl over purl stitch. I knitted it about the inch and a half, but if you want longer rib, you can do that, 2-inch, 2.5. It's really up to you. If you like the knit 1 and purl 1 rib, you can do that too. I started with the multiple of 4 stitch. So, this time I used the repeat of knit 2 and purl 2. And one more thing, on the first row, make sure all the stitches are not twisted. Very important. I knitted about the inch and a half, and that's enough for me. So I am going to change the needle. I used 2.75 millimeter. Now I am going to use 3.25 millimeter. After you change the needle, you're going to knit 1 round. And while you're knitting 1 round, all knit, not rib, okay? While you're knitting 1 round, I want you to add markers. It's optional, but it's easier because the design is repeat of 4 stitch. So you divide by 3 or 4 section, but has to be multiple of 4 in between markers. So it's gonna be easier later because if you make a mistake, there's gonna be something wrong. You notice that. So put 3 markers or 4 markers, it's up to you, but in between markers has to be multiple of 4. Let's start. Row number 1. 3M, which means 3 stitch main color. So on it with main, And 1C means one knit with contrast color. Okay? Repeat of 3 stitch with main color and 1 knit with contrast color. So you just have to repeat those 4 stitches. So again, in between markers has to be multiple of 4, which means the last stitch should be 1 knit with contrast color. Okay? This is the reason why I want you to add markers has to be multiple of 4. Because, you don't really want to find out at the very end of the row that you made mistakes, right? So, if you add markers like this, you notice right away. Anyway, again, there you go. 3 knit with main color and 1 last stitch with contrast color. There you go. I didn't make any mistake on row number 1. Now, row number 2. Repeat of 1 knit with contrast color and 1 knit with main color and 1 contrast and 1 main. And you just have to repeat those 4 stitch. Contrast, main, contrast, main. And row number 3 and row number 4 is same. 1 knit with main color, orange for me, and then 1 knit with contrast color, and 2 knit with main color. There you go. And you just have to repeat. 1 main, 1 contrast, and then 2 main. And again, Fair Isle, always knit stitch only. Row number 5. 1 knit with contrast color and 1 knit with main color and 1 contrast and 1 main. You repeat those 4. Same as row number 2. Piece of cake. Easy. Row number 6. Repeat of 3 knit with main color and 1 knit with contrast color. Same as row number 1. Super easy. And design complete on row number 6. And then repeat row number 1 to row number 6. You can change contrast color. You don't have to change contrast color. This is backside. As you can see, it's still stretchy because I didn't pull too hard. And don't be afraid. Sometimes, it's too loose and, the back of the head jammed up, which is not good. Again, you have to repeat row number 1 to row number 6 as many as you want, just until your desired length. Again, I am going to change the contrast color. This is row number 1. So 3 knit with main color, and then I'm going to use pink yarn now. So this is how to attach the new yarn. And I actually left green yarn as is, so it's still attached. But later on, I decide I am going to cut that green yarn because I was thinking, maybe I should use only 3 color, which is green, pink, and yellow, So I thought I can, carry that green yarn on to, the next, green color row. However, I add two different colors, so I thought it was too much. Anyway, so this is how you change. And now pink color, so forget about the green. And then just do, same thing with different color. That's about it. And I'll show you what it's really like, after for a little while, which is I add two more colors. These are original contrast color. And again, I add two colors, purple and gray. So from the bottom, green, pink, yellow, purple, and gray. And I was thinking, I hit the half of the desired length. So I decide I'm going to knit backwards. That doesn't mean, the back inside. I'm just showing you that I cut the, end yarn because it's too much to carry on, right? You know what I'm saying? There we go. But I'm keeping purple yarn because I knew I'm going to use right after the gray. So it's a short distance. So I keep the purple one. And now I'll show you how to, move on, carry on the purple color. And everything else, I cut it. So you have to weave every single ends off later on, which is kind of driving me nuts, but okay. Anyway, so I told you I'm going to do backward. So after the gray, the one before was purple. So I'm going to use the purple. And now I'm going to cut gray yarn because I'm never going to use the gray anymore. Right? That's my half length. So I'm going to do purple, yellow, pink, and green, something like that. So anyway, this is row number 1, which is 3 knit with main color. So still orange and then purple. And purple is still attached. So grab that purple yarn and then start knitting, but don't pull too hard. Okay? You don't want to pull, previous row. And if you don't like this idea, just cut the yarn and then reattach the yarn. Nothing wrong. All right? That's pretty much it. Then you just keep knitting until your desired length. My desired length, oh, before that, I'll show you. Yeah, there's no, super tension there or not. I just want to show you this. And again, my desired length is double up, which is I use purple, yellow, pink, and green. After green, that's my desired length. Whenever you hit the desired length, decreasing row starts. So you have to knit one round before you start decreasing row with main color. And you only use main color yarn from now. No more design. And I want you to add decreasing marker. You can divide by 4 or 6 or whatever, I divided by 6 because my stitch count is 120. 120 divided by 6 is 20. It's really up to you. And this is a multiple of 4, so definitely you can divide it by 4. Depend on the stitch count, right? So I put marker every 20 stitch. I still have, other marker, but I am going to remove when I knit around. And here's the thing. Can you see the wavy line? This is the spot you decrease, which means this is the spot you add markers. So more markers, more decreasing line. And has to be, evenly, right? You don't want to decrease only for, the front part. You have to divide evenly, okay? So all I'm going to do is knit until 2 stitch before the marker and then knit 2 together every rows. And you have to make a plan. 2 design, which means 12 rows. So 12 rows on top of the head for decreasing. That's too short. Okay, so I have 20 stitch every markers, right? Which means if I want to decrease 1 stitch at a time, I need 20 rows. But I'm not gonna, decrease every single stitch. Maybe, 15, 17 times, something like that, which is, 15 to 17 rows. Just see what happened. First of all, decreasing row number 1, knit until 2 stitch before the marker. Then knit 2 together. Very simple. Let's make final decision. I have a 20 stitch in between markers, and if I want to decrease 18 to 19 stitch in between markers, which means 18 to 19 rows you need. So let's look. 3 design, which means 18 rows. So 18 row on top of the head for decreasing, that's about right size for me. So I am going to decrease 17 to 18 stitch. If you decrease 18 stitch, which means 2 stitch left in between markers. I just did the knit 2 together. Now you have 19 stitch left there. Anyway, if I decrease 17 stitch between markers, which means you will ended up 3 stitch left. And maybe 3 stitches the maximum. I don't know yet. And maybe you don't understand what do you mean maximum. Maximum means when you close top of your head, if you have too many stitch left, you can't really close. I'll show you later, okay? So anyway, knit 2 together here. Again, knit until 2 stitch before the marker and knit 2 together. There we go. And you just keep doing in one row. All the way down to begin marker. And there's an option. If you're using thicker yarn and not much stitch to start, you can't really decrease too many rows, right? So what you have to do is you add decreasing row number 2, which is on knit. So you don't decrease not as many as mine, but additional row, which is decreasing row number 2, or knit, which is not decreasing, but you can actually knit little length, right? You know what I'm saying? But for me, 17 to 20 rows is enough for head, so I am not going to do decreasing row number 2. I just repeat decreasing row 1 until 2 or 3 stitch left in between markers. This is the hat I knit before, and can you see, the where the start and where the end? So you can tell maybe two and a half, the length from where to start and where to end. So it's really up to you. You really have to decide you want to do decreasing row number 1 and decreasing row number 2. Depends how many stitch you start with. Again, I have 120, which is quite a lot. If I add decreasing row number 2, and then you want to decrease until 3 stitch left, which means 17 row decreasing row, plus just solid decreasing row number 2 times 17, so it's going to be 34 rows until you finish the decreasing row. That's too much for me, right? So it's really up to you. Okay, so let's see what's going on. There we go. 5 or 6 stitch left in between markers, and as you can see, the line, knit two together line, which is right shifting. But don't worry about it. When you close the top of the hat like that, right? See, you don't really see that, knit two together line. And again, when you close, if too many stitch left, it's hard to close. Anyway, I did 17 rows, which is 3 stitch left in between markers. So I have 18 stitch left, and I remove the marker. Now cut the yarn, and with the tapestry needle, you just picking up every single stitch like that. You don't have to pull the yarn yet. Just transfer all the stitch onto tapestry needle. I am going to close that opening. There we go. I just did the halfway, so pull the yarn so it's easier. Then the rest of the stitch you have to, to pick, transfer to whatever. And after you pick every single stitch, you pull the yarn and then close it. Again, if you have too many stitch left, it's hard to close completely. You know what I'm saying? Because if you have 50 stitch left, you think you can close whole head, top of the head? I don't think so. This is 18 stitch, and when you pull the yarn, see, close, right? You know what I'm saying? You shouldn't leave too many stitch left. So again, 2 stitch or 3 stitch in between markers would be ideal. However, the total stitch count is important, right? So if you divide it by 4, 2, 3 stitch, perfect. But if you divide it by 8, 3 stitch, which means 8 stitch, 8 times 3, so 24 stitch. You need to maybe decrease a little bit more, something like that. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, please leave the comment. I'll help you. And again, those, the end tail, you have to leave everything, off. So this time I really wanted something for Halloween, but I didn't want to knit something only for Halloween. So I picked this design and I just love it, and I had a great time to knit. Easy, small, great project. Enjoy knitting!